How is it going, everyone? Since we heard about the leak of this PlayStation State of Play that is supposedly happening fairly soon, and it's gonna have an involvement from first party, really the main thing is gonna be the unveiling of the PlayStation 5 Pro, which Sony themselves and PlayStation themselves are now teasing with the 30th anniversary imagery that is online, and the announcement that they had. You see the PS5 Pro console in that image. I know there's been quite a lot of debate on the necessity of a PS5 Pro console. Look, I don't think it's catered for the regular audience. I think there's a very, very hardcore PlayStation audience that wants all of the PlayStation products that are released, whether it be the PlayStation Portal, the PlayStation 5 Pro. Obviously, the Pro will have, I would imagine, more enthusiasm and excitement than something like a remote play device like the PS Portal, but nevertheless, I think Sony knows who their target audience is, and that's for those that have the disposable income and also are so invested into the PlayStation brand that they want all of the hardware that they put out. Nevertheless, I was thinking more so, and what I am excited about is this involvement from Sony first party, because as a lot of people have been saying, PlayStation first party has been rather weak for the last, let's say, year and a half, 18 months. I mean, that's the same thing, but 18 months to 2 years now. Really going back to the beginning of 2023. 2023 and 2024 was a rather lackluster outside of Spider-Man 2, which was great, but when you look at the first party output, it's been rather non-existent. They've been doing some good work as far as Nix's porting stuff to PC. There's been stuff like Horizon Burning Shores as accessory content, VR2, and obviously a big push into live service, which I do feel like halted their first party output over the last few years, and I don't think anybody would argue that. However, this is an opportunity for a bit of a course correction and showcasing what PlayStation has in the pipeline to get their hardcore audience, and their audience in general, to be perfectly honest, really excited about the future of PlayStation. And I think they're coming off some incredibly positive momentum with the reception and the release of Astrobot, which currently has a 94 or a 95 on Metacritic, a potential candidate to win Game of the Year, and based on review scores, it may very well be the frontrunner to win Game of the Year. We still have, you know, a couple months left of big games coming out, but Astrobot is definitely in contention right now, and I've always said that gaming is very much a what have you done for me recently kind of industry. Even if you've been faltering for quite a while, all you need is some positive momentum, and building on that momentum, and perception can change very quickly. I truly believe that if BioWare delivers a banger with Dragon Age Veilguard, that their perception is going to change, and people are going to be like, oh my god, BioWare is back. I don't think Veilguard's going to be a banger. I think it'll be a fine RPG, but that's another topic for another video. I think this is a great opportunity for PlayStation to go into 2025 to cater towards their audience and once again show that they have their finger on the pulse of what the audience wants. And that's why yesterday I was thinking about, you know, what could we actually see as far as a state of play event or any event that could really get people excited. And I know that this is hopium, and I know a lot of you guys are gonna be like, this is total cope and you need to lower your expectations, and I'm not saying it is going to happen, but I would argue that this is the perfect time to announce a Bloodborne remaster for 2025. Now, yes, it's comedy at this point to talk about a Bloodborne remaster. I feel like we are not necessarily at Half-Life 3 territory, but we're getting pretty damn close, and it's that one pie-in-the-sky game that I think a lot of people want. I would argue that for those of you that are like, oh my god, PlayStation doesn't know what they have, why are they not doing a Bloodborne remaster, why are they not re-releasing Bloodborne, I would argue that that sentiment is not exactly the one we should go with. And I truly believe that Sony would have to be dumb to not know what they have with a potential Bloodborne remaster. It just makes so much sense, and I'm sure they are aware of the license that it is to print money. A simple remaster, releasing that on PlayStation 5 and PC, would make them an absurd amount of money. But what I would argue is that that is only one bullet in the chamber. You get one shot at that at least for probably a decade or two until you can re-release the game again. Let's say a decade before, you know, PlayStation 6 people will be like, remaster Bloodborne again, but I digress. You get to do that once, and you can do that at any point, and there's really no building on that, so I don't think it's the worst idea to keep that bullet in the chamber for when you need it the most. And I would argue that coming into 2025, this is when you need it the most, because do not forget that even though Sony may have a course correction, they look at something like a Concord and see that it's an absolute flop, and they need to get to doing stuff like Astrobot, taking calculated risks, and at the same time doing the stuff that their audience really, really wants, and Bloodborne Remaster is something that they really want. However, as far as other games go, investing into, let's say, a new Sly Cooper, I just use that as an example, it's not gonna be an overnight thing. These games, the development cycle and this course correction idea that I've been talking about as far as Sony getting back to what PlayStation does best, this doesn't happen overnight. This takes a few years, especially with how long game development is. So how do we get people excited for something that you could do relatively quickly? I'm not saying Bloodborne Remaster is a small undertaking, but certainly remastering Bloodborne would be a lot quicker than, let's say, doing a new game from the ground up, and it would add to the repertoire of PlayStation 5 titles coming out in 2025 that people are gonna be like, oh my goodness, PlayStation is back. You have this in place with Astrobot right now, where there is some positive momentum, and you shut down Concord, which I thought was a great idea. Let's just bury that, forget it ever happened. You take the L, and I think that's the best way to move forward. I didn't think Sony was actually going to do that, but taking the L immediately, just ripping that band-aid completely off, that is the best way to go about things, and you bury that, you pretend it never happened. It's time to get back to doing what PlayStation does best. You'll take the L with Fair Game coming up as well, at least, you know, we'll see how it turns out, but I do believe they're going to take an L with that. Whatever, release that game. But for the most part, 2025 should be a little bit of a course correction, and there are studios that we know are working on first-party titles that we haven't heard from. Sony Bend hasn't put out a game since 2019. Obviously, Sucker Punch hasn't put out Ghost of Tsushima since 2020. They did Iki Island in 2021. So Sony Bend and Sucker Punch could potentially release games in 2025. We know Naughty Dog's got another studio. I don't believe their game's going to be a 2025 title, to be perfectly honest. And then there is also Bluepoint. Bluepoint released the Demon's Souls remake all the way back when the PlayStation 5 came out in fall of 2020, the Demon's Souls remake. Their next game could potentially be a 2025 title. I'm not saying all of those games are going to be coming out, but you take at least one or two of those games and you couple that with a Bloodborne remaster, and it is a great opportunity to showcase that, okay, 2024 was an L, 2023 was an L as far as their first-party output. Astrobot's great, Spider-Man 2 is great, but I'm talking about having quantity and quality, and I'm not talking about having a billion games, but 2 to 3 high-quality games. That should be an expectation level that I think should be the standard. One or two of those games, you have a second-party title in Death Stranding 2, and then you also throw in a Bloodborne remaster. Guys, if that doesn't tell you that PlayStation is back, I don't know what would. And I would argue this would be a good opportunity to do some other things that would be, you know, easy to put together in the grand scheme of things. Maybe like a Ratchet Future collection, you know, stuff like that, that you can release, and it's not going to be the biggest undertaking. A collection here, a collection there, an Infamous collection, so on and so forth. Games that people want to see come back, and those can be accessory releases to your big releases that you hopefully have in the pipeline for 2025. Whatever Sucker Punch is working on, ideally a sequel to Tsushima, maybe a Bluepoint release, and maybe a Sony Bend release. Those are the three studios that I would be looking at potentially releasing a game in 2025. But if you want to add some juice to it, Bloodborne Remaster actually coming out in 2025, I think makes a ton of sense. Not to mention, 2025 is the 10th anniversary of Bloodborne. That's a perfect time to celebrate the 10th anniversary of that game, releasing it on PlayStation 5, and by the way, 6-month delayed release on PC. Brother, you're gonna be printing so much money that you're not gonna know what to do with it. That game comes out on PC, it sells like 2 million copies in 24 hours. I would even argue that it might be something to look at to release that game day and date. I don't think they're gonna do that. I really do believe Bloodborne Remaster is a big enough title where it could be a system seller for some people, so I just offered that to you guys. Again, you guys might be thinking that I'm setting my expectations sky high, but am I really? I am just looking for PlayStation to do what their audience wants, and as far as timing goes, I feel like 2025 is actually one of the best years imaginable to do a Bloodborne remaster. You're talking about the 10th anniversary. You're talking about the opportunity to get people excited for the PlayStation brand again, and it would be on top of ideally one or two of those games from those aforementioned studios that you would think have games in the pipeline, a Bluepoint, a Sony Bend or a Sucker Punch. I feel like at least one of those studios is going to be putting out the game, or, you know, outside shot of Naughty Dog's second studio. No, Santa Monica's working on a new IP. And then there's also stuff like the Gravity Rush 2 remaster. I think if you have at least one, ideally 2 games from your first party, but one would be perfect, on top of also doing a Bloodborne remaster and then doing stuff like Gravity Rush and potentially, you know, collections here and smaller scale releases, I think people would get excited about PlayStation again. And again, gaming's always gonna be it's always gonna be very much a what have you done for me lately kind of industry. It's the drop of the dime. Like, this industry moves so fast. We're looking at so many games and so many things happen that if you have one good year in 2025, people are just gonna be like, yo, PlayStation's back. And also coming off the heels of the incredible success that Astrobot has, it's a really good opportunity. And again, I think it was the best decision. I just didn't think Sony was gonna go with it, with just ripping the band-aid completely off of Concord, shutting the game down. Yeah, you take the L of $150 million, whatever it was, but honestly, the damage that that game was just gonna do for brand perception just because of how big of a flop it was, refunding everybody that picked it up, that rebuilds goodwill, and then on top of that, releasing a game like Astrobot, like, that was a good way to shift perception to an extent. And I think if they do a killer State of Play event, which, you know, I'm not even saying it has to be killer, I'm just saying it has to be good. The standard is so deep in the ground after the showcase last year and some of the recent State of Plays that it just has to be a good show. One first-party exclusive, and then I'm asking for a remaster that is a license to print money on its 10th anniversary, during its 10th anniversary. Like, is this that big of an ask? It may be hopium. Let me know what you guys think, but I think it's the perfect time, and I feel like it would be a great way to get PlayStation back to what they do best. And you're dropping the PS5 Pro. What, you would want to drop that game when the brand excitement is at its highest. Even if you don't have a release that is really going to showcase what the console is going to do, at least you're telling your audience, hey, 2025, you'll have all of these games that are going to really utilize the PS5 Pro. And if a Tsushima 2 or whatever they decide to call it is going to be like one of the most compelling titles that can showcase that, and you got Bloodborne Remastered in there as well, I just think people are going to be really excited about that. And I think it makes all the sense in the world. Again, it might be total hopium. It might be me just having my expectations sky high. I saw, like, the top comment in our State of Play video was like, yo, just keep your expectations low. And yeah, that is the best case scenario, but it's just been bad PlayStation event after bad PlayStation event that at some point we're due for a good one. I know Sony can do it. I've seen incredible PlayStation events before. I know they can do it. So at some point they are gonna do it, and maybe that is just hopium for me, expecting that PlayStation is going to do a good event. Is that hopium? I don't know. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.